The crisp morning air on the Eastern Front carries the metallic scent of frost and gun oil as a young German soldier prepares his position. His gloved hands move with practiced precision, adjusting the bipod of what would soon become the most feared automatic weapon of the Second World War. The year is 1942, and the Maschinengewehr 42 is about to announce its presence to the world. While other weapons of that era have long since disappeared into museum displays and collectors' cabinets, the MG-42 refused to die. Its distinctive staccato roar, so fast that individual shots blend into a continuous, terrifying rip, still echoes across battlefields today, nearly 80 years after its birth. This is no accident of history. The MG-42 represents something rarely achieved in weapons design: near-perfect alignment between engineering brilliance, tactical doctrine, and psychological warfare. To understand why this particular machine gun transcended its Nazi origins to become a modern military mainstay requires us to peel back the layers of its creation, examine its revolutionary impact, and trace its unlikely evolution from Hitler's buzzsaw to NATO's backbone. The story begins not with German military supremacy, but with desperate innovation born of necessity. By 1941, the Third Reich's war machine was straining against the realities of a prolonged conflict. The Wehrmacht's standard MG-34 machine gun, while revolutionary in its own right as the world's first true general-purpose machine gun, had revealed critical flaws. Though deadly effective, the MG-34 required approximately 150 man-hours to manufacture, demanded precision machining of complex components, and utilized too many scarce materials at a time when Germany's industrial capacity was increasingly under Allied bombing pressure. The German High Command needed something that could be mass-produced more quickly without sacrificing combat effectiveness. This urgency led to one of history's most unusual collaborations. The Wehrmacht approached Johannes Grossfuss, a company with no prior firearms experience that specialized in sheet metal products like lanterns, to develop a replacement. Under the guidance of Dr. Werner Gruner, Grossfuss employed radical manufacturing principles that would forever change firearms production. Rather than relying on precision-milled and forged components like virtually every other firearm of the era, the MG-42's design embraced the use of stamped steel parts, spot welding, and riveting, industrial techniques more commonly found in automobile manufacturing than gunsmithing. The result was aesthetically crude compared to the elegant MG-34, with visible spot welds and a distinctly industrial appearance, but it could be manufactured in just 75 man-hours, half the time required for its predecessor. This production efficiency alone would have made the weapon significant, but its performance characteristics elevated it from merely practical to legendary. The heart of the MG-42's design innovation was its operating system. Most contemporary machine guns used gas operation, where a portion of the propellant gases were diverted through a port in the barrel to cycle the action. The MG-42 instead utilized a recoil-operated system with a unique roller-locked delayed blowback mechanism. When the weapon fired, two rollers in the bolt head were forced outward into recesses in the barrel extension, locking the breech until chamber pressure dropped to safe levels. As the barrel and bolt recoiled together, cam surfaces forced the rollers inward, unlocking the bolt and allowing it to continue rearward while the barrel returned forward. This elegant mechanical solution allowed for an astounding cyclic rate of 1/200 rounds per minute, nearly double that of any Allied machine gun of the era. The American Browning M1919 and British Vickers, by comparison, managed only 450 to 600 rounds per minute. The consequences of this blistering rate of fire were immediately felt on the battlefield. When the MG-42 first appeared in combat in North Africa in May 1942, Allied troops were psychologically unprepared for its distinctive sound. Unlike the rhythmic, countable tap-tap-tap of other machine guns, the MG-42 produced a continuous tearing noise that sounded more industrial than martial. American soldiers dubbed it Hitler's buzzsaw, or Hitler's zipper, for this characteristic sound. The Soviets, with their practical sensibility, called it the linoleum ripper. German troops themselves referred to it as Hitlersäge, Hitler's saw, or more grimly, Knochensäge, bone saw, nicknames that reflected its ghastly effectiveness against massed infantry. This psychological impact was so profound that the US Army eventually produced training films specifically to diminish the weapon's terrifying reputation among green troops. But the MG-42's impact extended far beyond psychological warfare. Its extreme rate of fire fundamentally altered infantry tactics on both sides of the conflict. While British and American doctrine centered on the individual rifleman as the core of infantry combat, with machine guns providing supporting fire, the Germans inverted this approach. The MG-42 became the centerpiece around which the entire infantry squad operated. German tactical doctrine positioned the machine gun as the primary offensive and defensive tool, with riflemen serving to protect and support the gun crew. A standard German machine gun team consisted of 6 men, a gunner, a commander, a soldier to carry the tripod, and 3 ammunition bearers who also carried spare barrels and tools. This approach maximized the devastating potential of the MG-42 by ensuring a continuous supply of ammunition and rapid barrel changes to maintain its withering fire. The weapon's astonishing rate of fire created both tactical advantages and logistical challenges. The sheer volume of bullets downrange made it exceptionally effective at area suppression, pinning down enemy forces and creating overlapping fields of fire that left no safe approach routes. A German saying emerged, "The MG-42 doesn't kill, it denies terrain." This accurately captured the weapon's primary tactical value, controlling the battlefield through overwhelming fire rather than precision shooting. However, sustaining this rate of fire required enormous quantities of ammunition. A gunner could expend a 250-round belt in just over 12 seconds of continuous fire. German infantry units carried significantly more ammunition than their Allied counterparts as a result, with every squad member tasked with carrying additional belts. The MG-42's physical design offered additional advantages beyond its rate of fire. Its quick-change barrel system allowed a trained operator to replace an overheated barrel in under 7 seconds, a critical feature when firing at such high rates. The barrels themselves utilized hammer rifling, a manufacturing process where rifling was forged into the barrel rather than cut, significantly reducing production time at a minor cost to accuracy. The weapon's feed system, with its unique belt feed mechanism operated by a top cover-mounted lever arm, provided reliable feeding even when the weapon was covered in mud, snow, or sand. And despite its high rate of fire, the MG-42 weighed just 25 pounds with its bipod, lighter than many contemporary machine guns with much lower performance. The technical excellence of the MG-42 was proven in the harshest combat environments imaginable, from the scorching deserts of North Africa to the frozen wastelands of the Eastern Front. The weapon maintained its reliability under conditions that rendered many other firearms inoperable. This durability stemmed from its simplified design with generous clearances between moving parts, allowing it to function even when contaminated with debris. Its stamped metal construction, initially viewed as crude by traditionalists, proved more resistant to battlefield damage than precision-machined components. A dented receiver on an MG-42 might still function perfectly, while similar damage to a more precisely fitted weapon would render it useless. The MG-42 proved particularly valuable in defensive operations due to its ability to deliver devastating suppressive fire. When mounted on its standard bipod, it functioned as a light machine gun capable of supporting infantry advances. When attached to the more substantial Lafette 42 tripod, it transformed into a medium machine gun with greater stability and accuracy for sustained fire at longer ranges. This versatility allowed German forces to adapt their defensive positions to varying terrains and tactical situations. The weapon's reliability meant that a single gunner could hold a position against numerically superior forces, often delaying enemy advances long enough for reinforcements to arrive or for an orderly withdrawal to occur. By 1944, as Germany fought defensive battles on all fronts, the MG-42 proved particularly valuable in delaying actions and defensive positions. German commanders learned to establish interlocking fields of fire with multiple MG-42s, creating killing zones that could halt numerically superior forces. During the Allied invasion of Normandy, many of the devastating casualties on beaches like Omaha were inflicted by MG-42 positions in concrete bunkers. A single, well-placed machine gun team could effectively control hundreds of meters of terrain, forcing Allied troops to seek cover and disrupting coordinated advances. In urban combat, the weapon's high rate of fire proved especially effective in clearing streets and preventing enemy movement between buildings. The MG-42's impact was so significant that Allied forces made studying and countering it a priority. U.S. Army intelligence produced detailed reports on German machine gun tactics, and training programs taught specific techniques for approaching and neutralizing MG-42 positions. Allied troops learned to identify the distinctive sound of the weapon and to time their movements during barrel changes or reloading pauses. The typical approach involved using suppressive fire from multiple directions, while small teams maneuvered to attack the position with grenades or flamethrowers. Despite these countermeasures, the MG-42 remained one of the most feared weapons on the battlefield until the war's end. One particularly notable MG-42 position during the Normandy invasion was WN-62, where a German gunner named Heinrich Sevelow reportedly fired over 12,000 rounds at American troops landing on Omaha Beach. While the exact casualty figures attributed to his position are disputed, the incident exemplifies how a single MG-42 team could inflict disproportionate damage on attacking forces. The weapon's effectiveness in defensive positions was so great that Allied troops often bypassed known MG-42 nests rather than attack them directly, preferring to isolate and neutralize them with artillery or air support when available. The MG-42's high rate of fire also made it surprisingly effective against low-flying aircraft. When mounted on an anti-aircraft tripod or simply fired from the shoulder, the weapon could put enough rounds into the air to threaten pilots making strafing runs or low-altitude bombing approaches. German soldiers developed techniques for leading fast-moving aircraft, creating what amounted to an aerial barrier through which pilots were reluctant to fly. While rarely downing aircraft directly, these anti-aircraft applications of the MG-42 forced Allied pilots to maintain higher altitudes, reducing their accuracy and effectiveness in close air support missions. Despite its many advantages, the MG-42 was not without weaknesses. Its high rate of fire could quickly overheat the barrel, necessitating frequent changes during sustained combat. The distinctive sound made it easy for experienced enemy troops to identify MG-42 positions, potentially drawing concentrated counterfire. The weapon's voracious appetite for ammunition created logistical challenges, particularly as Germany's supply lines became increasingly strained in the latter stages of the war. And while devastating at medium ranges, the MG-42's fire was often less accurate at extreme distances than slower-firing weapons, as the recoil impulses from its rapid fire could affect precision. What makes the MG-42's story truly remarkable, however, is what happened after Germany's defeat in 1945. While most German military equipment was destroyed, captured, or abandoned following the surrender, the MG-42's design proved too valuable to discard. American ordnance experts tested, captured examples extensively, even attempting to develop their own version chambered for the .38-06 Springfield cartridge as the T-24 machine gun. Though this direct copy proved unsuccessful due to issues with the larger American ammunition, elements of the MG-42's design, particularly its belt-feeding system, influenced the development of the American M60 machine gun that would serve through the Vietnam War and beyond. More direct descendants emerged elsewhere. With Germany partitioned and demilitarized, the technical drawings for the MG-42 were believed lost. However, the basic design was reverse-engineered in several countries. Yugoslavia produced a near-identical copy as the M53, retaining the original 7.92mm Mauser chambering, but reducing the cyclic rate slightly to improve controllability. When West Germany began rebuilding its military forces in the 1950s as part of NATO, they naturally turned to the proven MG-42 design as the basis for their new standard machine gun. The result was the MG-1, essentially a rechambered MG-42 adapted to fire the new NATO standard 7.62 51mm cartridge. Through continuous evolution, the MG-1 became the MG-3, which introduced further refinements while maintaining the same basic operating principles as its World War II predecessor. The MG-3 featured an improved feed mechanism, chrome-lined barrel for extended life, adjustable sights calibrated for the different ballistics of the NATO cartridge, and in some variants, a heavier bolt to reduce the cyclic rate to a more manageable 800-950 rounds per minute. Despite these changes, the MG-3 remains instantly recognizable as a descendant of the MG-42, with approximately 80% parts commonality with its wartime ancestor. The iconic sound, though slightly slower, remains unmistakable. Perhaps most remarkably, the MG-3 remains in active service today with the German Bundeswehr and at least 30 other nations worldwide. From Norway to Pakistan, from Greece to Brazil, variants and derivatives of the MG-42 continue to serve as frontline weapons in modern militaries. Some of these forces use directly imported MG-3s, while others produce licensed or unlicensed copies. The Italian MG-42-59, Austrian MG-74, Spanish Setmi Amelie, and Iranian MG-A3 all trace their lineage directly to the MG-42. Even after 8 decades, no fundamental improvement to the basic design has been necessary, only adaptations to accommodate modern manufacturing techniques, optical sights, and mounting systems. The enduring legacy of the MG-42 represents a rare case where a weapon's technical merits have completely transcended its political origins. While other iconic Nazi-era equipment, from the Tiger tank to the V-2 rocket, remained historical curiosities after the war, the MG-42 simply shed its swastika and continued serving. Its core design principles have influenced virtually every general-purpose machine gun developed since World War II, from the Belgian FN Maggie to the Soviet PK series. Even firearms that bear no external resemblance to the MG-42 often incorporate elements of its feed system, quick-change barrel mechanism, or recoil operation. The practical experience gained from the MG-42 in combat led to the modern concept of the general-purpose machine gun, GPMG, a versatile weapon that could function in light, medium, and heavy machine gun roles depending on its mounting system. Before the MG-42 and its predecessor, the MG-34, armies typically maintained separate inventories of light, medium, and heavy machine guns for different tactical applications. The German approach of using a single versatile weapon simplified logistics, training, and maintenance while providing consistent firepower across different battlefield scenarios. This concept was eventually adopted by most major military forces after the war, leading to weapons like the American M60, British L7, and Soviet PK machine gun. The influence of the MG-42's manufacturing techniques extended far beyond machine guns. The use of stamped and welded components instead of machined parts revolutionized firearms production across many categories. The Soviet AK-47 assault rifle, developed shortly after World War II, incorporated similar manufacturing principles to achieve its legendary reliability and ease of mass production. Heckler & Koch, a German firearms manufacturer founded by former Mauser engineers, applied the roller-locked delayed blowback system, derived from the MG-42, to create a family of successful weapons, including the G3 battle rifle, MP5 submachine gun, and HK-21 machine gun. These innovations reduced production costs while maintaining or improving reliability, transforming military and civilian firearms manufacturing worldwide. The dark irony of the MG-42's legacy lies in how a weapon created by one of history's most reviled regimes became a cornerstone of Western military technology during the Cold War. Many of the NATO forces opposing Soviet expansion relied on what was essentially Hitler's buzzsaw, now repurposed for democratic defense. The MG-3 served as the standard machine gun for the West German Bundeswehr throughout the Cold War, potentially ready to face Soviet forces across the Fulda Gap in a conflict that thankfully never materialized. It remains in service with the modern German military today, though it is gradually being replaced by the more modern MG-5. The MG-42's design has proven remarkably adaptable to technological advances over the decades. Modern variants have incorporated synthetic materials, optical sight mounts, improved ergonomics, and compatibility with digital fire control systems without compromising the fundamental operating principles. The durability of the basic design in the face of advancing technology speaks to its inherent soundness. While other weapons of similar vintage have been rendered obsolete by changing battlefield conditions, the MG-42's descendants continue to meet the requirements of modern warfare. This adaptability has allowed the design to survive multiple generations of weapons development that have rendered most of its contemporaries obsolete. In popular culture, the MG-42 has achieved an iconic status that few weapons can match. Its distinctive appearance and unmistakable sound have made it a fixture in World War II films from The Longest Day to Saving Private Ryan. In the latter, director Steven Spielberg used the authentic sound of the MG-42 to heighten the terrifying reality of the Omaha Beach landing sequence. Video games set in the World War II era invariably include the MG-42, often portrayed as the ultimate power weapon that players either fear-facing or eagerly seek to control. This cultural presence has further cemented the weapon's historical significance in public consciousness. The technical innovations that made the MG-42 revolutionary extended beyond its direct descendants. The roller-locked delayed blowback system, developed for the MG-42, later influenced the design of the Heckler & Koch firearms family, including the famous MP5 submachine gun used by special forces worldwide. The principles of stamped steel construction pioneered in the MG-42 have become standard practice in modern firearms manufacturing, allowing for economical mass production without sacrificing durability. Even the MG-42's distinctive quick-change barrel system has been widely adopted in contemporary machine gun designs, acknowledging the fundamental soundness of its approach to managing barrel heat. The MG-42's contribution to military tactics extended beyond its technical innovations. The weapon's high rate of fire forced opposing forces to develop new doctrines for assaulting fortified positions and crossing open terrain. The American military developed the concept of marching fire, continuous suppressing fire delivered from the hip while advancing, partly in response to the threat posed by MG-42 positions. Post-war infantry tactics worldwide incorporated lessons learned from confronting and employing the MG-42, including the importance of interlocking fields of fire, the value of sustained suppressive fire in both offensive and defensive operations, and techniques for rapidly moving across open ground to minimize exposure to automatic weapons fire. What technical lessons can we draw from the MG-42's remarkable journey? Perhaps the most important is that simplicity and durability often trump precision and complexity in combat conditions. The MG-42's generous tolerances and robust construction allowed it to function under conditions that would disable more finely machined weapons. Another lesson lies in the value of manufacturing efficiency. The MG-42's design for mass production ensured that it could be supplied in sufficient numbers to make a tactical difference. Finally, the weapon demonstrates how a single exceptional characteristic, in this case its extraordinary rate of fire, can provide a decisive advantage that outweighs minor disadvantages in other areas. The MG-42's development also offers insights into effective weapons procurement processes. Rather than specifying exact technical solutions, German ordnance officials identified the capability gaps in existing weapons and allowed innovative companies to propose solutions. By selecting a firm with expertise in sheet metal fabrication rather than traditional gunsmithing, they gained access to manufacturing techniques that traditional arms makers might have overlooked. This approach, focusing on desired outcomes rather than prescribed methods, enabled the revolutionary design that might otherwise never have emerged. Modern military procurement programs often try to replicate this approach, seeking innovation from non-traditional defense contractors to solve persistent problems. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the direct military lineage of the MG-42 is finally beginning to fade. Modern weapons like the Heckler & Koch MG5 are now replacing the MG3 in German service, incorporating newer materials, improved ergonomics, and better integration with optical sights and other accessories. Yet even these contemporary designs owe a debt to the fundamental principles established by the MG-42. The concept of the general-purpose machine gun, a single weapon adaptable to light, medium, and heavy machine gun roles, was pioneered by the Germans with the MG-34 and perfected with the MG-42. The story of the MG-42 ultimately transcends its role as a mere weapon. It represents a case study in how intelligent design focused on practical needs can create something that outlasts the circumstances of its birth. From its emergency development during a desperate war to its continued service 8 decades later, the MG-42 demonstrates that true innovation can emerge from constraint. Forced to create more with less, the engineers who developed this remarkable weapon established design principles that continue to influence military technology today. The distinctive ripping sound of the MG-42 that once struck terror into Allied soldiers now serves to protect many of those same nations. In this transformation lies perhaps the most profound lesson of the weapon's history, that technology itself is morally neutral, its impact determined by the purposes to which humans apply it. The same engineering brilliance that made the MG-42 a terrifying instrument of Nazi aggression later made it an effective tool for defending democratic nations during the Cold War and beyond. Few weapons have undergone such a complete redemption arc. For those fascinated by the confluence of history, engineering, and combat tactics, the story of the MG-42 offers a compelling window into how these elements interact to produce lasting innovation. When you next encounter this legendary weapon in a museum, film, or historical account, remember that you're witnessing more than just a relic of World War II. You're seeing a design so fundamentally sound that it continues to influence modern warfare nearly a century after its creation. In that enduring legacy lies the dark truth of why the MG-42 never died. Its technical excellence transcended the evil regime that birthed it, ensuring that its distinctive roar would echo long after the Third Reich had crumbled to dust.